Tammy.
My mind. My chair feels broken.
It seems a little wobbly.
Yeah, it feels like I'm leaning this way. I think I need a normal chair. Legit. Like, I feel like I'm like...
All right, everybody ready?
Yeah.
Jules, we good? All right. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to our regularly scheduled Evans City Council meeting for Tuesday, February 17, 2026. My name is Mark Clark. I'm the mayor. I'll call the meeting to order. Please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Where's the flag?
Oh. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, throw me off.
I liked how they changed it up on
Right?
us.
Roll call, please.
Mayor Clark.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Pletka.
Here.
Councilmember Johnson.
Present.
Councilmember Neal.
Present.
Councilmember Crabtree.
Here.
Councilmember Delaney.
Here.
Councilmember Fair.
All right, next item on our agenda is audience participation. Is there anybody in the audience that wishes to address City Council on any item not on the agenda and or of a public hearing? If so, please step forward to the podium, state your name and address for the record. All right, seeing none, moving on. Approval of the agenda. Madam Clerk, any changes to the agenda?
No, Mayor.
All right, I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda. Oh,
Whoop.
okay.
Skip moving a second. So there you go.
All right. I have a motion, a second, to approve the agenda. And that motion passes 7-0. All right, next item on the agenda, consent agenda. Any changes to the consent agenda? If not, I'd entertain a motion. I have a motion, a second, to approve the consent agenda. And that motion carries 7-0. All right, next item, new business, item number 7A, consideration of resolution number 01-2026, adopting the 2026 Weld County Hazard Mitigation Plan. We'll hear from staff.
Good evening, Council. My name is Kurt Bodette. I'm the Safety and Risk Manager here with the city. Here tonight for your consideration of resolution number 01-2026 is continued adoption of the Weld County Hazard Mitigation Plan. The city has had the Hazard Mitigation Plan adopted in the past and looking for your consideration to continue with participation in that. Essentially, participation within the county hazard mitigation plan allows the city to become eligible for either pre or post disaster funding should the need arise. And essentially, there is no additional cost outside of what the city is currently doing as part of this these efforts. As part of this participation, our key components would be the citywide stormwater master plan through multi-phase, multi-year design and construction of flood mitigation, including the drainage systems and improvement of the retention basins, along with our ongoing ADA transition plan update, and really focusing on the ADA component to those with accessibility issues, and making sure that we're a community that should an emergency arise, that we would have the means in order to make accommodations for those with those mobility issues.
Thank you. All right, any questions or comments of staff? Seeing,
Sorry,
go ahead.
I'm trying.
Okay. Go ahead, Councilmember Delaney.
Thank you. The one thing when I was reading through this that I just want a little clarification on, in the financial impact to the city, it says that we would benefit from it because we can do participate in pre and post disaster relief. I guess my question is, given that we have to do the citywide stormwater master plan and the ADA transition plan as a part of this, do those two incur costs?
Currently, the ADA transition plan is estimated to be $137,000 for the evaluations of all city premises. And I'd have to refer to staff for the exact cost of what the drainage pieces will entail.
So just to remind council, we actually do have the ADA transition plan update in work right now by Mile High Accessibility Consultants. So that portion of it is being addressed. We have not yet budgeted for a full-blown citywide stormwater master plan, if that's what you're asking.
Okay. That is what I was asking.
I think it's something that we need to be making progress on, especially as we work through our capital improvement program that I've tasked engineering with. But we're not quite to that point yet. But I think it's something that we should be looking at here in the near future. Now, if we go back to our discussion earlier where we were talking about the rehabilitation of Ridge Pond, that certainly plays into it with the rehabilitation of detention basins, the outfalls. If we look over at Chapel Pond, the work that we've done over the last couple of years at that facility, but then also at Prairie View Park, Dante Park, Driftwood Park, those are all basins that we've made a good faith effort to improve the drainability, if you will, of those different areas. So, do we have a formal stormwater plan, master plan in place? Not yet, but we are making demonstrable progress towards improving our stormwater infrastructure.
I certainly agree with that. So, just to clarify, there will be some money spent because of passing this. It's just money that needs to be spent anyways because we need to have that master plan.
Absolutely, I think a stormwater master plan will be necessary in the near future.
Thank you. No more questions.
All right, great, thank you. If there are no additional questions or comments, I'd entertain a motion. All right, I have a motion, a second, to adopt resolution number 01-2026, adopting the 2026 Weld County Multi-Jurisdictional Hazard Mitigation Plan. And go ahead and submit your votes. And that motion carries 7-0. All right, thank you. All right, next item on our agenda, item 7B, consideration of contract for the Gateway Sign and Entryway Beautification Project. And we will hear from staff. Thank you, Kurt. Appreciate it.
Good evening, Mayor and members of council. Brian Stone, Economic Development Director. I'm here this evening for the consideration of construction contract for a gateway sign and entryway project located at the corner of 31st and Highway 85, commonly known as the Junction. We've discussed this for a couple of years now, and this project is a key component of the city's long-term beautification along this corridor, and really trying to enhance and really set that goal for that visual presence as you come into our community. The proposed improvements include construction of gateway sign and associated landscaping, like I mentioned, to make sure that we're recognizable coming along that 85 corridor coming in from the north. I failed to leave some of the water conservation measures. I know we've had some conversations on other projects and stuff, so I just wanted to kind of highlight some of these this evening. From the beginning, this design has incorporated several water-conscious elements to ensure this project is both attractive as well as we're being responsible. So the plant selections are low water use, tolerant species. The seed mixes were specifically chosen for our environment. All the trees do have drips, so we don't have sprinklers or heads spraying on those. That'll get right into the roots, as long with the shrubs and the ornamental grasses. We'll have drip emitters on that. There is a very, very small section of turf up by the sign. A reason for this is, and it's less than 7% of it, but we have a manhole that we'll need to access, so we put some pavers into that, and so we'll seed that. We are using a drought-resistant turf, and I've also asked our consultant to look at exploring. There's a Colorado native sod that is even more sustainable within our environment. the irrigation along the native, so we'll have native that runs tall and shorter native grasses that will be irrigated to start with heads, but hopefully once we get established after a couple years, we can shut that off and only use that when we need to. And that same thing applies with the roadside mixes. So together, these measures significantly reduce the long-term water demand and ongoing maintenance costs while providing the visual quality expected along this corridor. So for the procurement of this, on December 18th, we reached out and put our bids out on BidNet. We received 5 responsible bidders. And from that, we did a compliance review, ability to work, adherence to specifications, as well as our overall cost. When we reviewed, we received 5 bids. Like I mentioned, integrated site services, just over 319, and then our highest bid was 517. So we had a wide range of bids within it. Integrated Site Services submitted the lowest and responsible bid for this project. Following that, we did some reference checks, and they've also done successful work prior for some of our right-of-way projects as well as medians without any issues within the city. We do have allocated $500,000 in the capital budget for this project, and along with their proposal, along with the 10% contingency, it remains well under. So staff would recommend contract approval to this evening with Integrated Site Services in the amount of $319,876.80, along with a 10% contingency for a total amount not to exceed $351,864.48. That contingency would be based on city manager approval. So approval of this will move this project forward, and hopefully we can get this going at even in February. Hopefully we can get things going with the nice weather. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
Any questions and or comments, staff? All right, seeing none, I would entertain a motion. I have a motion and a second to approve the construction contract with Integrated Site Services for the Gateway Sign and Entryway Beautification Project located at 31st Street and Highway 85 in the amount of $319,876.80. Authorize a 10% contingency in the amount of $31,987.68, subject to the city manager approval, and authorize the mayor to sign the contract. And that motion carries unanimously, 7-0. Thank you, Brian. Appreciate it. All right, next item, 7C, consideration of contract amendment with Beck Total Office Interiors for furniture, fixtures, and equipment services. Take it away, Brian.
Good evening again. Brian Stone, Economic Development Director, here for consideration of a contract amendment with Beck Total Office Interiors for furniture, fixture, and equipment, FF&E, services for the new police station, as well as the renovation for the ECC as they depart. As construction of the new police station progresses, if you haven't seen it, it's phenomenal. If you ever want to take a swing over and check it out on the inside, please let me know. But we still continue to coordinate on design details, procurement, and installation of FF&E items required for this. FF&E is all of your office furniture, your desk, your shelving, your cubicles, conference tables, storage components, and other things necessary to operate. And so a little bit different. Some of the locations we've taken out the millworks to provide flexibility and add cubicles, so officers have actually more space and privacy going this route. And Beck has been fantastic kind of showing us and designing this. And as mentioned, the FF&E will also include furnishings for the vacated police department space here at the Evans Community Complex. On the 24th of April, we issued a request for qualifications through BidNet. There was a selection committee that evaluated the firm's information, team qualification, project approach, and things that I really like to look at is obviously references, but they're similar experiences. Based on the scoring from that, we brought in 3 firms: Slate Office Scapes, Beck Total Office, as well as contract furnishings for interviews. During that interviews, we had them outline what they would do and kind of present some creative ideas of what it would look like within our space. So they had a work session presentation. They responded to some of our questions. Obviously, we checked references, and then they gave us a fee proposal. Following the checks, Beck Total Office Interiors was unanimous. Number one was ranking based on, again, strong references. Their project manager that was here during the interview process that will be doing insulation has done this all the time. He's local, so if we have any questions or anything or need anything, he's right around the corner. And then flexibility with multiple suppliers that really helped us control cost, as well as experience with law enforcement facilities. So similar to the CMGC procurement process we did with FCI, we went with the same structure with them to capture all our direct costs, ensuring that transparency and clarity for the city. So the proposed amendment tonight is for the FF&E for that, along with contingency for the police department project, as well as the associated FF&E components for here. The total budget that we have for FF&E for the total project is $880,000. The proposal we received from Beck was at $614,286.74, leaving approximately $265,713 within the overall FF&E budget for the remaining remodel, as well as contingency if we missed anything for the remaining space at the PD. So we would ask this evening that you award the full $880,000, the $614,286.74 for the police department, and then the remaining balance would be a not to exceed amount for the remaining portions. So with that, staff would recommend approval and be happy to answer any questions you have.
Great, thank you, Brian. Any questions and or comments of staff? All right, I'm not seeing any, so I entertain a motion. All right, I have a motion and a second to approve the contract amendment with Beck Total Office Interiors for furniture, fixtures, and equipment services for the new police station and associated remodel space in the amount not to exceed $880,000, and authorize the mayor to execute the contract or the amendment. And that motion carries 7-0. Thank you, Brian. Appreciate it. All right, next item on the agenda, item 7D, consideration of 37th Street Widening Project Phase 2A Contract Amendment. We'll hear from staff.
Good evening, Ty Boreski, Public Works and Utilities Director. Today I'm going to be presenting on a proposed contract amendment for the 37th Street Widening Phase 2A project. So as a reminder, this Phase 2A of the 37th Street Widening project is Sienna Avenue to Stampede Drive. It was to expand the roadway to 4 travel lanes with a landscape median, shoulders, and 2 10-foot sidewalks. As for financials, the project was budgeted at just over $5.2 million. We received a bid from the low qualified bidder, just over $3.125 million, with a $314,167.06 contingency, for a total not to exceed $3.44 million. Today, I'm bringing forth a proposed amendment in the amount of just over $167,000. And so before getting into the details on this, so this was a 2024 project. Colorado Paving was the low qualified bidder. They were around $900,000 cheaper than the next lowest bidder. And I have kind of a timeline to describe why we're discussing a contract amendment for a project that was initially awarded in April 2024. So April 16th, 2024, we awarded this contract and construction began 2 weeks later. Generally proceeded to kind of general expectations through October. And then in November of 24, we identified a few kind of concerning numbers that showed that there may be some budget that was problematic. And so the kind of first indicator of this was we noted that there was just over $335,000 of contingency used. And so as we just discussed on a previous slide, council approved just over $314,000. And so at that point, we were awaiting some reimbursement from utility companies since there was lowering of Atmos gas. There was different utility companies we had to work with. And when these projects proceed, generally there is some cost sharing, and we did receive some reimbursement. So at that point, we were operating under the assumption that in November, the project was still within budget. During the same time, Colorado Paving, we were pushing to open the roadway, and we hit mid-November, and so the city approved the Colorado Paving to move the landscape portion of the project to the following year. We wanted to make sure that the landscape would stick, that things would grow healthy. If we were concerned that if we were seeing November planting, given the weather we were seeing, that nothing would stick, and we'd be expecting to do some pretty major replacements the following year. So the engineering division at the time gave permission to push that project into spring 2025. So the work took place in kind of spring into early summer with our final landscape punch list walkthrough in July. As all of you have probably noticed, a few kind of issues popped up related to work quality. There were concerns about the transition. There was a sinkhole closing a lane. We had a number of issues with landscaping work that needed to be remedied. All of this was there were back and forth negotiations with Colorado Paving to wrap this project up. Come December, we weren't making meaningful progress. So myself as the Public Works and Utilities Director sent a project completion demand letter stipulating the conditions that needed to be completed or the consequences if we were unable to reach an agreement, exploring things like performance bond. And a week later, Colorado Paving formally acknowledged the outstanding work, and we worked with them, the engineering staff, myself, and Colorado Paving, to come up with an amicable outcome for some of the outstanding work, some of the change orders, kind of a negotiated settlement. And in the letter, that's one of the attachments you have, that number is listed. So then we kind of push into this year. We now have the engineering department. So the engineering department pushed forward with closing out the work that was outstanding. So we had agreements. Weather permitting, we've had positive weather. We're able to come in and do some of the physical work required to kind of finalize the project. The physical aspects of that work as of February 10th, which was the deadline set, has been completed, however, not yet accepted. So the work is completed in the field. The engineering department and director of engineering is yet to accept it. And then today, we're here with the formal consideration of the contract amendment. And so as for the outstanding work, it's hard to explain that three items are the reason why they pushed back, but they were pretty substantial. The first being this phase one transition remedy. And so originally, the engineering staff directed Colorado Paving to try some specific spot patching. That ended up maybe helping a little bit, but wasn't the improvement that we were expecting for 2 new roadways to join. And as part of this, we did have to figure out sourcing asphalt over the winter and bidirectional traffic management because it was unacceptable for us to close this portion of 37th Street again. Even more so with the work Atmos is doing out west. The other outstanding work in this picture, you can see the sinkhole. So we have a telecommunications manhole here. There was some inadequate compaction and stormwater intrusion kind of led the sinkhole to getting larger and larger. We had to do some initial investigation, figure out was the fault with the contractor, was it with the telecommunication company, exactly how that happened. And so that has been repaired. And then finally, we have some items left on the landscaping punch list. There was a lot more. Currently, there's about 13 plants that need to be planted, of which will happen first thing this spring. And so financial overages, this is kind of where we ended up with the contract amendment request for just over $167,000. And so first and foremost, this kind of comes up to the 28 change orders associated with this project. And I've included a change order log as part of the exhibits for you all to have the opportunity to review. And so as I mentioned, we had that $314,000 contingency budgeted. In total, with the number of change orders, we were over $428,000 in change order overages. The remaining amount, the bulk of that was related to a previous clause in our contract for, it was called fixed materials overages. And an example of that is if a contractor went in and they removed or brought in more fill, they could bill us above the bid tab without a formal change order or formal approval. And that's something that we have since updated. This came up during the Evans Parks drainage project. And so after that project, which was also in 2024, the process has been overhauled to no longer allow that type of charging above the bid tabulation. And so project next steps, so Colorado Paving completes the outstanding work and the repair of the deficient work is accepted by the Director of Engineering. And so I mentioned the physical work is completed. They were able to get the CDOT specs for paving of 2 acceptable temperature days, given the weather we've had, for better or for worse. We have those final landscape items to be approved. Today, I'm bringing forth this Colorado Paving contract amendment that would allow us to go above the not to exceed amount to pay off the final invoice. However, we will not pay off the final invoice and release retainage until the deficient work remedies are accepted by the Director of Engineering. And this, I kind of got into some of the project management corrective actions that took place. The Evans Park drainage project with we had very similar issues. A lot of those had been addressed. This project actually kicked off at around the same time. And so some of the measures, such as the updated contract template, weren't implemented at the time of this project, but have been since. We've also hired a contract and procurement specialist. We've developed project profiles, and all of this between phase 2A and 2B of the project, we've reduced our change orders from 28 to 9. So that's a 70% reduction in change orders just from overhauling our process, having some of the right people in really important roles, and updating our contracts so we don't have some of the more open-ended language that opens us up to higher than anticipated invoicing. So in conclusion, Colorado Paving was the firm we chose to go with in '24. Their bid was over $900,000 less than the second lowest bid. We identified potential budgeting concerns in November of '24, but things were pushed given weather, and we were, in theory at the time, within acceptable limits for the project given anticipated utility reimbursements. As we started working towards corrective work and remedying some of the issues out there, the transition, the sinkhole, some of these additional change orders and fixed material overages came to light that showed a higher than anticipated amount of contingency for the project being used. And so city staff negotiated with Colorado Paving to close out the project with all identified outstanding work completed and accepted with this contract amendment in the amount of $167,259.21. So I'm happy to open it up for questions.
Great, thank you, Ty. Any questions and or comments of staff? Yeah. I do actually have a question. I wait for that to pop up there, but one, have they already started some of that work already? Because I was driving on 37th Street the other day and that transition there, whatever was done, I think made it worse. So I was just wondering if that's going to be addressed.
Yeah, so I mentioned that they had completed their attempt at the physical work. The Director of Engineering now has to accept that work before we move forward with payment. We had some internal conversations about that transition and whether or not it kind of fits the standards. So we do have that opportunity. We will not pay until it is ultimately accepted.
And I appreciate you going in and fixing up and making some, changes to how the procurement and everything works, because one of my biggest concerns was this council approved $314,000 in contingency, but 335,000 was used. So where did that other approval come from, and why wasn't that brought to council? But I'm glad that was that?
Happy to mention it again. So 26 out of those 28 change orders were they were subject to city manager approval. That
Okay.
city manager approval was not received.
Got it. Oh,
As for the 335 being that trigger point, we were anticipating that there would be utility reimbursements that came through from the partners. And based on the number we were expecting at the time, we were still projecting to be below that 314 in November. So we moved over into the spring, did all the landscaping, and then we got hit with these final closeout invoices that happened to be higher than anticipated.
right. I appreciate it. Thank you. All right. Seeing no other questions or comments, I would entertain a motion.
Well, I have a comment. I know it hasn't been accepted, but I do kind of agree. I did feel that there was some kind of like improvement there. Granted, not sure exactly what we're looking for it to be like seamless, but there is some improvement. The manhole area, that also looks great. So I travel that road constantly. I'm sure others as well. So it seems fine to me. Just that transition line, I'm not sure how.
Really? Oh, interesting.
Like you said,
I drove over the other day and it seemed like it was more of a bump or
in
bump.
one area.
Which direction?
It depends which direction. Yeah, exactly.
I was going eastbound.
Eastbound, okay. The eastbound one, it doesn't feel as much, but the other, yeah, going west, it does. And so that's kind of where I'm at as well. I'm not certain if there's a measure of transition that we should be within of acceptable, I suppose.
Yeah, I'll get with the engineering department and we'll make sure that, it reaches an acceptable level. Generally, when we have deficient work like this identified, we let the contractor know. We then have the contractual obligation to give them the opportunity to repair it. We don't dictate how they go about doing it. Then it's our job to look at the final product that's they're delivering for acceptance and make a decision. And so we'll be closely coordinating on that, and we won't, like I mentioned, this contract amendment, these payments don't get released until things are accepted.
Awesome, thank you.
All right, seeing no other additional questions and or comments, I'd entertain a motion. All right, I have a motion and a second to approve the amended 37th Street Widening Project Phase 2A contract in the amount of $167,259.21 to Colorado Paving for an updated not to exceed amount of $3,607,259.21. All right, that motion carries 7-0. Thank you, Ty. Appreciate it. All right, next item, 7E, consideration of 37th Street Widening Project Phase 2B, Construction Management and Inspection Services Contract Award Amendment. We'll hear from staff.
Thank you, Ty Boreski, Public Works and Utilities Director. So this is focused on the more recent portion of the 37th Street Widening Project Phase 2B that just wrapped up, specifically related to the Construction Management and Inspection Services Contract. So as an overview, this portion of the project, Phase 2B, is Stampede Drive to 35th Avenue. Just like 2A, it's the expansion of the roadway to 4 travel lanes, a landscape median, and shoulders, 2 sidewalks, 10-foot wide each. Substantial completion of this project was reached on November 7th, 2025. And as a note for kind of getting into this contract amendment, the construction and construction management for this project were procured in a parallel process. So at the same time, we sought both. And kind of the financial summary kind of explains why the CM side of the contract didn't come to City Council. So the budget for this project was just over $5.7 million. On the construction side, it was awarded to GLH for just under $4 million, which was approved by City Council on May 6, 2025. the construction management and inspection aspect of the project was awarded to Roxol with a bid price of $198,799, which, based on the organization's spending authority, was able to be approved administratively on April 30th, 2025. And no contingency was included as part of the construction management and inspection side of the project. It was on the construction side, not on the construction management side. And so we are seeking a proposed contract amendment, which can be attributed to a lack of alignment between the construction manager scope and the construction firm. So GLH, the construction firm, sought a schedule that had extended workdays versus what was originally bid out as part of this project. So mostly during the period where they had excess utility relocation work with coordination with Atmos Energy, they were working significant 12-hour days instead of the 8-hour days that were what the city saw when we were obtaining bids for this work. There was also 5 weekends of weekend work and 2 weather delay days that were not specified as part of the original contract scope, included as part of the city's bid package. And here is a breakdown of all of the unanticipated hours and kind of where Roxol approved that. They are out of the North Metro Denver area, and so when we look at the original bid price, we look at it as a whole. We unfortunately don't have many local firms, so we end up paying a slightly higher mileage allowance, which may bring up some questions with City Council. So I wanted to explain they are coming out of the North Metro area every single day. So the original contract, as I mentioned, was $198,000, just over. And so for this proposed amendment, we're seeking an amendment for $69,866.20 for an updated contract just over $268,000 to bring this contract to full closure. And so in conclusion, Roxol was awarded this contract on April 30th. GLH was awarded the construction side on May 6th. Given they were parallel procurement processes, the schedules were not aligned at the time of bid. So Roxol ended up working significantly more hours than was anticipated based on the bid documents the city provides. So we had a fair price for them. They came back with updated unit totals for the additional hours, and that's how we've ended up with this contract amendment. Spoke with city manager that the second that this project and this contract amendment surpassed the $250,000 spending authority as per the city manager's administrative limits. That's why we're coming to council, not for the original contract, but for the new amended value as per the guidance of our city attorney. So happy to open it up to questions.
Great, thank you, Ty. Questions and/or comments of staff? Councilmember Neal.
Can you go back to the financial slide? Oops, then it must have been the next one. Your hours do not add up to the total that you have there.
I can go back and look at it. I have a bid tab. I may have just copied it over from their PDF incorrectly. The invoice we have was for the 428 total hours, so I apologize if there's an error in there.
Well, there's an error somewhere if my addition is correct, so. But the total hours that they billed for was 428, correct?
Yeah, and I think that's included in the Exhibit A from the contract amendment document. So you have contract amendment Exhibit A. That has the specific amount in the breakdown as well.
Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem, I'll let you go next.
I just have a question on the mileage. What is that for?
So generally, when we put this out, they include it as just a bid tab. So it's the mileage basically from the moment they either leave their home office, which I believe is in Thornton, or the inspector's home. So they give us a bid based on that mileage of that inspector for either, if they're splitting it. So for 12-hour days, you either have the opportunity to have one inspector paying overtime, or potentially they supplement with a second inspector, so you have double mileage. So it is the mileage from either their home office or home to the site, any driving necessary around the site throughout the day, and then returning.
Thank you for the clarification.
And I believe in the original contract, they were around 5,000 miles was estimated for the initial portion of the contract. The amendment is just the additional 2,000.
Thank you. I didn't know they put that in contracts that well. I didn't catch that, so thank you for that clarification.
Councilmember Johnson, go ahead. My question was already asked, so.
Same, but I just wanted to add, I just wanted to comment on the work that GLH did. That was amazing work. It was like a smooth road. Their transition to the other portion was seamless. So if I look at that project, I'm just getting an idea of what the other portion should look like. So if I base comparison, I mean, their work was phenomenal. If we could have used them for the whole stretch, I mean, it would have been beautiful. So I just wanted to give kudos to the company because they did fantastic work. So, I mean, yes, the hours and all that they put in, but you can tell from the product they provided in that stretch of work.
Yeah, I agree completely. They were a joy to work with, and the amount of staff time spent on 2B versus 2A, it's evident that they were a great organization to work with. As part of our contract and procurement specialist, we're putting together vendor reviews for every vendor we work with. So, with our experience on 2B will be a very positive review that then we have in our files as we consider future projects.
All right, and my question was already answered, so I don't need anything else. All right. Since there are no other additional questions or comments, I would entertain a motion. All right, I have a motion, a second, to approve the amendment to the 37th Street Widening Project Phase 2B Construction Management.
Sorry.
No, you're right.
Somehow the system has messed up and it says that I motioned and seconded myself.
I saw
It's been
hers.
glitching, but
I saw hers. Yeah.
I did.
Thanks for bringing that up. I
Sorry,
appreciate it.
sorry,
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor.
No, you're good. Thanks for bringing that up. All right, I have a motion and a second to amend the 37th Street Widening Project Phase 2B Construction Management and Inspection Service Contract in the amount of $69,866.20 to Roxol Consulting Group Incorporated for an updated not to exceed amount of $268,665.20. And submit your votes, and that motion carries 7-0. Thank you, Ty. Appreciate it. All right, moving
Mayor
on.
Clark, before we move on, can I quickly, who made the motion?
Sure.
I did.
Okay,
Yeah.
and I second.
Yep, and
You
he
seconded.
seconded.
Now it popped up. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's weird. Thanks for bringing it up because I did see hers pop up.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that was weird. All right, next report, City Manager.
Yes, Mayor and Council, just a few things for you here tonight, and then I'll have a couple staff members come up and provide some other updates for you. The city has once again received the GFOA Distinguished Budget Presentation Award for the 2026 operating budget. This marks our 8th consecutive year receiving this national recognition. This consistency matters as it reinforces that our budgeting process is transparent, policy-driven, and aligned with council priorities. Credit goes to our finance team for continuing to set this high standard for our annual budget. On external funding, we've been awarded $500,000 in fiscal year 2026 congressionally directed spending for a stormwater connection project at 40th and Denver at the Railroad Park drainage basin. This will mitigate localized flooding near 39th Street and improve discharge control in that corridor. This project was initially selected and then removed during the continuing resolution process in 2025, and then we successfully resubmitted. The funding is now signed into law. Engineering and public works staff are evaluating scope and integration so we can move this project forward. In terms of a couple code updates, police and code enforcement are preparing amendments to the Evans Municipal Code to reinstate front yard parking and tractor trailer parking regulations that were removed during the 2024 model traffic code adoption. We'll bring an ordinance back to the City Council for further consideration here in the near future. We'll also have a few more code updates pertaining to turf and some other requirements that we're working with city attorney on as well. Let's see. I've got a note in here about ADUs. I think it would be good for us to revisit that discussion. I know that there's been some concern from the city council about ADUs and making sure that we are enforcing our regulations. When House Bill 24-1152 came out, there were 67 communities that were subjected to the regulations of the ADUs. We got an extension until December 31st to become compliant with the regulations within the House bill. We are one of 13 communities right now throughout the state that's not compliant. My concern is this is going to put us at a competitive disadvantage for state funding. So I would recommend the city council considers a work session to reevaluate this. I think we can come up with some practical solutions to the ADU code that satisfies the intent of state law but still maintains the city's home rule capabilities. And so I just want to put that out there for your consideration. I think it's something that we should consider having another discussion on. On infrastructure projects, 42nd Street ditch repair is moving into construction with completion anticipated by mid-March. I believe the 42nd Street ditch repair will also be constructed by GLH. Is that correct, gentlemen? Yeah, so GLH will be on that project as well. So we are moving towards getting that project going. This will restore functionality and reduce long-term maintenance risk in that corridor. The 49th Street ditch culvert is substantially complete with guardrails remaining. Once those guardrails are installed, the roadway will be fully reopened to vehicular traffic. It's been about a year that it's been closed down, so being able to reopen that will certainly be nice. State Street Sanitary Sewer Design Project is currently out for bid. I want to say bids are due back today, February 17th. This will upsize the existing main from an 8-inch to a 12-inch from 31st to 37th Streets, increasing capacity to support anticipated commercial development in the Evans Junction area. Certainly once we get design done, then we'll roll into the construction phase of that project as well. Let's see. Staff are defining the scope for Phase 3 improvements, 37th Street at 65th Avenue and east towards Arrowhead Drive, with construction tentatively targeted for 2027. Additionally, street light design between 35th and 47th Avenues is advancing through procurement to support corridor safety and consistency. So a couple big projects that we've been talking about as well. Looking ahead into the 2026 growing season, staff are proactively working to incorporate public and railroad-owned properties into the tall grass and weed maintenance schedule. We're pairing operational maintenance with targeted code enforcement and improved coordination with the railroad to address reoccurring concerns early rather than reactively. So going through and making sure that our public properties are well maintained, but also that the railroad corridor through town is maintained, working with the railroad to make sure that we have that communication established to improve the aesthetics and the safety of that railroad corridor. Finally, council will hold a work session February 24th, so a week from tonight, with Barry Dunn to continue refining the evolution of Evans' strategic plan. This will help guide infrastructure investment, service levels, and growth management decisions moving forward. And as a reminder, the Evans Area Chamber of Commerce annual dinner will be held March 7th at the Riverside Library. If council is interested in attending with a guest, please let us know, and we'll get you signed up for that. I believe the deadline is the February 27th. I believe is the deadline to get registered for that. Overall, Mayor and Council, the organization continues to advance priority projects, securing outside funding, and address operational standards across the community. With that, I'd like to have Curtis Cunningham come up and update the City Council on the 2025 Community Cleanup Event, and then I'll have Chief Darling come up and update the City Council on 2025 Hotel Enforcement and Calls for Service.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Curtis Cunningham, Assistant to the City Manager. During 2025, we did hold 2 cleanup events, one on Saturday, May 31st, and one on October 25th, with a total budgeted for 2025 of $150,000. During these events, we did sell 2,126 vouchers and filled 162 roll-offs. The total revenue generated with vouchers, tires, metal recycling was $34,701, and the total expenses for the 2025 cleanup events was $82,679. While the final 2025 budget figures are still being reconciled, the preliminary year-end balance for the refuse fund is estimated at $366,934. For 2026, we are anticipating that the cost will go up a little bit based on vendor fees. WM has announced that we will see a 5% increase in roll-off fees from $443 per roll-off to $465 per roll-off. Assuming the participation levels are similar to 2025, the city anticipates approximately $31,000 in revenue from voucher fees, with an estimated roll-off expense of $75,000 plus overage fees. With the approximate $10,000 in additional costs for mulch, postage, etc., the project is expected to generate $66,000 in surplus within the 2026 refuse fund allocated to cleanup events. And while also still early, it is estimated right now or projected that $406,332 will be in the refuse fund at the end of 2026. And we have scheduled the spring 2026 cleanup for Saturday, April 25th, 2026. Any questions? That's all I have for council.
Thank you, Curtis. Appreciate it.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Randy Darlin, Chief of Police for the City of Evans. I am here to provide an overview of hotel-related crime and disorder. A review of calls for service and data from 2023 through 2025 indicates that calls generated by hotel staff, guests, and community members via 911 and non-emergency lines have remained comparatively flat across the 3 years. This overview really provides kind of an overview on total calls for service, calls normalized by hotel size, the number of rooms within the hotel, the nature of severity of the incidents that occurred within the hotel or on the property, who initiated police contact, whether it was us or the community, and then staffing and resource consumption. When you look at this, our hotels represent a small portion of the physical properties within the city, but they do generate a considerate volume of police activity in and around the locations, right? So the increase in pretty much the entire increase in calls for service over the last 3 years is truly driven by proactive policing. They're self-initiated, so our officers making contact, not necessarily responding to a call for service. When we pull data for calls for service, it doesn't separate out something we initiated versus something a call was 911. They're all essentially given an event number, and that's the data that we're pulling from. We can parse that data out and did in this report, as you can see. But what it tells us is that the calls for service are pretty flat, coming from hotel guests, coming from hotel staff, coming from the community, but we have significantly increased proactive policing in and around the hotels over the last 3 years. And year over year over year, 2023, 2024, and now 2025, significant increases, up in the upwards of 150% increases in police-initiated calls for service over that 3-year period. When you look at total calls for service at the hotels, Roadway Inn is our highest user when you use raw numbers. When you compare that to the number of rooms, America's Best tends to beat that out on a percentage rating. They're just a smaller hotel, 62 rooms versus 94, I believe it is. So you see a little bit higher ratio per room calls for service, but Roadway Inn, 530 calls for service generated in calendar year 2025. America's Best 473, Select Stay and Heritage Inn are significantly decreased, less than half the calls for service from those two locations, right? The proactive enforcement accounts for almost the entire growth in hotel-related calls for service from 2023 to 2025. And again, officer-initiated calls activities up over 147% specifically. When you look at calls per room, like I had said, America's Best is a little bit higher at 7.63 calls per room, Roadway Inn at 5.64, Select Stay at 3.75, and Heritage Inn at 1.9. And that correlates pretty much with the crime within those hotels as well. When you look at reported crime summary for the hotels, Roadway Inn has the most at 56, America's Best at 45, and then Select Stay and Heritage Inn at 13 and 8, respectively, as you move through the number of crimes reported. So not a big surprise in that we're spending our time where we're seeing the most concern within the community. Hotel staffing and resource consumption analysis, when you look at that, we spend about 5.46 work weeks per year at Roadway Inn. 4.24 work weeks per year at America's Best. Select Stay down to 2.67, 1.45 at Heritage Inn. So about 13.8 work weeks, full 40-hour work weeks, 13 of them at the 4 hotels combined. However, when you look at the calls for service being generated, again, 50%, 48% of that is actually proactive policing, not responding to a call for service. Our officers initiating contact for whatever reason that may be, right? So those are the type of policing strategies that I support. That's what I want to see our officers doing. That's what I want to see them spending their time, right? If we have an area that has a significant amount of calls for service, I want to see our officers engaged. I want to see our officers in that area trying to reduce the crime in that area and bring about a better public safety community for everybody that's in that area, whether they're traveling through, whether they live nearby in a neighboring community, or whether they're just keeping the peace in and around the hotels, right? The key findings of this report really account for, so the hotels account for about 5% of all calls for service in the city. About 5%, right? In 2025. 1,378 total calls for service at the 4 hotels out of 27,702 total calls for service citywide. 2 properties, Roadway Inn and America's Best, account for 73% of that amount of calls for service, 530 and 473 respectively. While the total hotel calls have increased significantly, plus 30% from 2023 to 2025, 73% increase in officer-initiated calls in those hotels. So that's really where the increase is. It's pretty much right across the board. Approximately 48% of all hotel-related activity was officer-initiated, so almost 50%. So that's exactly where that's officer time well spent with regard to crime and disorder in the area. Approximately 8% of all calls related to the hotels turned out to be criminal in nature, so enough evidence provided to the officers that they believed a crime did occur, and reports were generated and investigations began. About 553 patrol hours annually, the equivalent of 46 full patrol shifts on an annual basis, dedicated solely to the hotels. Operational interpretation of this data, it reflects kind of a deliberate and concentrated patrol strategy, increases visible law enforcement presence, preserves the peace within the hotel areas, address disorder and quality of life concerns in and around the hotels, which is incredibly important for the residents that live in and around the area, and then reduce spillover impact into the surrounding areas, which as our business communities increase there, right, we have 2 new gas stations, we also have the McDonald's in the immediate vicinity of those hotels, so important that we engage in that proactive policing strategy. When measured in staffing hours, it's a quarter full-time position that an officer spends annually at the hotels. So it's not quite a part-time position, but it's a quarter time every day for 24 hours a day. A quarter time of an officer's time is spent in and around the hotels. So with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have regarding the data that was provided.
Great information. Thanks for the update. Appreciate it. Back to you, sir.
I was just saying thanks for all the data. For a numbers kid, I really enjoyed that.
I also had something. I appreciate the fact that you're being super proactive, but you also understand the fact that we're trying to improve our city, and especially that corner, and you're ensuring that it's staying safe, that we are cognizant of what we're doing within our city, trying to ensure that we have businesses and they stay, looking that they're safe for our community members, and also aesthetically ensuring that everything should look, just safe enough for people to navigate. So I really like that you also integrate that within the information, and that you have that also in mind, and that's appreciated.
Councilmember Neal.
Well, it's somewhat concerning that Select Stay has jumped in the number of incidents. And it still is concerning that it takes an officer away from patrol and being able to patrol the rest of the community in a lot of cases. But to reduce the amount of problems in that area, I think it's well worth the effort. And I hope that continues to be the process, and that we see the figures start to drop. As if criminals don't like being messed with, so they move on to other places where it's easier to participate in those type of activities.
Sure, and presence is an important piece to that. And probably more telling of the officer's time is we want to reduce violence in and around those calls for service, right? So we're going to have disorder calls for service. It's common within hotel populations, right? It's transient, it's coming and going. You're going to always have different people in, and you're going to have conflict, right? But this was, one of our hotels last year was one of the locations of one of our homicides, right? We want to make sure we're spending the time where we need to make sure we're reducing violence within the community and making the community as safe as we possibly can. The calls for service have increased when you look at the numbers, but if you look at the raw numbers that are provided, it really is totally flat across all 3 years. The increase is solely as a result of the officers engaged in and around the area. And that's a great way for us to keep that corridor as safe as possible, provide the community, because there is a lot of surrounding residential properties as well. So keep that from spilling over into the residential communities in that area as well.
Well, one of my biggest concerns in driving that corridor is they have the people that are utilizing that area have to walk on the streets at night or biking, and you literally cannot see some of them in time if you were to have some sort of evasive maneuver from another car that was coming through there. There's no place for them to go.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of foot traffic in and around that area. Pedestrian traffic has increased in that area.
Yes, and a lot of them are
dark clothing,
right down the center line.
Can't see them.
See them. Thank you, Chief.
Great. Thank you, Councilmember Neal.
I have nothing further.
All right. City. Thanks, Chief. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
City Attorney.
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. We are continuing to provide day-to-day support for staff on contracts, land use projects, things like that. A few projects that we're working on are completed. I don't know if council ever heard, but we did finish the court case changing the GLIC shares, change in use for the Liberty Draw development. We got a final decree in that case after about 2 years. Then there is a NIST meeting on February 19th that I think Ty Boreski is going to attend on behalf of the city to sort of get an update on where things stand with that project. That should be interesting. A couple of issues to bring the city code into compliance with recent legislative changes. The city manager referred to a couple of those, the ADU requirements and the non-functional turf requirements. There was also a change in the independent contractor statute for in order for the city to enjoy the presumption that their agreements with various contractors are independent contractor relationships rather than an employee that the town or the city would have to cover, they've now added a requirement that a little bit of a language change and then a requirement that those be signed and notarized. So you may see a little bit difference in the form of some of the contracts that come before you, and that's the reason for those. And just a couple of additions to Sam Light's presentation this afternoon. I had a checklist of things that I wanted him to cover with you, and he covered all of those. And for some of you that may be new, for most of you, I think it was probably a refresher and good to touch base on things we've talked about in the past, things like Quora and open meetings and executive session and quasi-judicial proceedings. But a couple of additions. In the area of ethics, Sam talked to you about your ethics code, which is in section 2.05 of the city code. And you may or may not be aware, there's also an Evans Code of Conduct for elected officials that dates back to 2004 that you may or may not be as familiar with. It relates more to your relationship and you're working with various other, well, among yourselves or with others. It talks about policies and protocols related to conduct, including council conduct with one another, council conduct with city staff, council conduct with the public, council conduct with other public agencies, council conduct with board and commissions, and council conducts with the media and sanctions. So in case that is not at the tip of your tongue and fresh in your reading library, I'm going to ask the clerk to send that around so you can read that one as well. And then finally, just to sort of emphasize how important conflicts of interest are, I noticed, and I'd forgotten this, that there is actually a conflict of interest provision in your charter. So even from the very beginning of the city, that was a pretty important concern. So, and with that, that's all I have. Be glad to answer any questions.
Great, thank you, Scott, appreciate it. Yes.
What, have we had any movement on the Weld County Court case with the animal?
The appeal?
Yeah.
Well, the appeal has been filed. We've notified CIRSA. You do have, it's a Rule 106 appeal, and CIRSA does provide limited coverage for Rule 106 appeals. And so we've sent it to CIRSA. CIRSA has designated an attorney. It's out of the Andy Nathan's firm, and I think it's going to be Nick Poppy, and I've worked with Nick on a couple of other 106 appeals for other municipalities. He's good. It looked like from the email I got today that at that initial conference that we're going to try and set up for tomorrow afternoon, Andy Nathan may also be involved because it looks like there is, on appeal, they've sought to raise an issue that wasn't really raised before you, which is whether or not the animals involved constituted service animals. And that's an area that Andy's more familiar with than Nick might be. So I guess the bottom line is, yeah, it has been referred to CIRSA, and you're in good hands with the people they've got working on it.
Thank you.
Sure.
All right, thank you, Scott. All right, so council discussion, and I know that the Heritage Committee people have some stuff to discuss, so actually, you guys want to go first? You guys don't have to request to speak, I know. We'll just let you guys do that.
Okay, so on the dais when you got here today, there were two drafts for our new, let's go back. We had a meeting with the Heritage Day Committee, which might now have to be called the Special Events Committee. And we're getting prepared for our new springtime celebration. It's going to be called Blooms and Brews. And on the dais, there were two options for a logo. They're almost identical. The only difference is how the text is. And I was just wondering, do we want curved or flat? And that way I can.
Flat.
I like the curve. I agree with Councilmember Johnson. I like the curve.
And it sounds like Councilman Neal liked the flat.
It
it
stands out better.
Well, here it does. It looks good, but I have to say that the curvature doesn't take away from the cityscape as we have on the bottom. The bold, all caps, kind of focuses on that and takes away from the cityscape at the bottom.
So that's actually the event.
Right.
So those
but
are
I'm
your
just
food
saying-
trucks.
Right, but I'm
Okay.
just saying.
Yeah.
that it makes the whole thing stand out where
But
this
it
one
also
just
has
pops.
interesting-
Right.
It has more interest to it.
Okay.
Versus the other ones like this.
Well,
And
it's like,
see, I like the all caps one because it is a little more boom, here's what we're doing. And it's symmetrical with the bottom of the can. I mean, I like the curved one too. Please don't get me wrong. I like them both, but it's hard to decide. And for me, the second one, I see where Councilmember Neal's going because it does stand out more and is symmetrical with the bottom, but I see what you all are saying because the curved, yes, looks pretty.
Yeah, it's
As a-
funny that you say that because facially, for me, this seems more symmetrical because it's like using negative space, and I just that's just me.
Right.
As a designer of beer cans, I would suggest use the font with a flat and use it on the curve.
It doesn't work.
It does
I
not
know.
work.
We actually
I would
tried
actually,
that.
Yeah.
I would actually say it would work
Hold on.
with the right and symbol.
Who knew this was going to be so contentious?
All
I
right, so
apologize.
put a check mark next to the one you want. We'll pass it down, whatever the majority of it wins.
Well, I want to keep this. Can I just use yours and put AJ?
Can I color on it?
Can you make it work?
Kyle,
Can they make it work? All caps in the
there you go.
curve?
Here,
Councilmember
yeah, this is
Fur?
mine.
Councilmember Fur.
Wait,
I will see what we can do.
So
I
there's
said Kyle.
there's
and
mine and hers.
You want to keep yours, so. Yeah, what do you want?
Oh, boy.
Put him on the spot. I mean, honestly and truthfully, they both look fantastic. I really wouldn't care which one we went with, but I'm just saying personally, I do agree with Councilmember Johnson. I like the other one better. But either way, I would be good with either or.
But I also agree. Dabble with the and symbol and see if the font would work instead of the plus.
Yeah, the and symbol.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, we kind of did for like 15 minutes today
Yeah.
during my lunch.
As is. This
Okay.
one looks better.
Okay,
Cool.
so flat.
Councilmember Johnson.
Okay.
Oh
that's
wait,
what
hold
I
on.
want.
Sorry, before was that Councilmember Delaney? Did you have anything else to add, or was there anything else you wanted to bring up?
Yes, just
Okay,
really
go
quickly.
right. Yeah, sorry.
I apologize. I don't want to take too much time because I'm already over my 5 minutes. I
fine.
just wanted to say, obviously, not the greatest news tonight, but what was amazing about both of Mr. Bresky's presentations is we're moving in the right direction, and I appreciate that. And that is due to your leadership and bringing on a professional purchaser and so on and so forth. I appreciate everything you guys are doing. We're going to get over this hump, and the city will be better for it. So thank you.
Here,
Thank
here.
you. I appreciate your support.
Because you know my hobby horse is purchasing. I don't know if anybody knows that.
No,
Oh.
not at all.
So thank you, and that's all I have,
Very
Mr.
good.
Mayor.
Councilmember Johnson.
I don't have much. I just wanted to just kind of highlight two educators that won awards that are from our Evans schools. It was a success in 6 award winners. So the Leader Among Leaders, which is Miss Bustrom, and she is a Dos Rios principal, as well as Rookie of the Year, Miss Lanning. I hope I pronounced her last name correctly, but she is a teacher at Heisman Elementary School. So I just wanted to say congratulations to both of them for getting awards. It's amazing, and it's great to have amazing educators for D6 and within our community. That's all I have.
Councilmember Crabtree.
Oh. Next on the list. Awesome. I wanted to share some information from my buddy Jeff Carlson from the Weld Trust. For those of you who aren't familiar with Bright Futures, it's a tuition grant program to help our local students attend college, trade schools, and career training. This 2020, actually in 2024, just City of Evans students, there was 111 of them, and the trust ended up issuing out $216,855. And in 2025, we had 158 recipients with $346,245. So in the last couple of years, over $500,000 with 171 participants within the city of Evans participated in the the Bright Futures programs. That's phenomenal. I'm really glad that our Evans residents are utilizing that program.
That's awesome.
That is awesome.
That's all I had.
All right. Mayor Pro Tem, go ahead.
I would like to say thank you to Cody and staff. I had some concerns I brought to Cody and staff regarding like trees trying to steal my hat while I was running and other concerns. and
you're short.
I know, but if the tree's trying to grab my hat, that tells you it was a little low. But they were on that within less than 24 hours, and I wanted to thank all of you for catching that and helping me with that. I do appreciate all that you do, and to let everybody know that if they do use the online system to report something, it's very easy to do. You don't have to call, you don't have to email anyone, you can do it online. But thank you all. And then tonight's reports were very clear and concise and addressed all the issues. And I appreciate both of you for bringing both your reports in the work session and the main meeting, and your patience with my questions of that may seem, mundane to you, but to me it's just education for myself and the public. So thank you all. That's all.
Councilmember Fair.
Yeah, just like to also say, as a Ward 1 representative, I greatly appreciate law enforcement's efforts in the Highway 85 corridor, as well as every other aspect of the city as well. The redevelopment we're seeing in the 85 corridor, the addition of streetlights, even Family Dollar turning over to Musa Liquors, the entire area, it just has a whole different feel. I lived and worked in that area 10 years ago, and it was a totally different situation. So we're bringing a lot of life back to that corridor, and it's greatly appreciated. And then other than that, I just want to say that I'm very supportive of City Manager Sims' recommendation to bring back discussions on ADUs and get us compliant with the state on that issue.
Yes.
That's all.
I know you wanted to have the last word. Can I have one more thing?
You got one more thing.
I'm sorry. So the other thing I kind of wanted to bring up today is I was thinking about it, and we're going into phase 4A, which is 65th Avenue to Arrowhead Drive. That's going to put us in a position where it's going to go from 2 lanes to 4 lanes, and then almost immediately back to 2 lanes, and then back to 4 lanes once it gets to the roundabout. What I was wondering is, given that we now have the street sales tax, I was wondering if we didn't want to, as a council, look into actually going phase 4B and doing that wetlands, which is going to be expensive, and then doing the 65th Avenue part. That way you will end up with a contiguous 4-lane highway by the time we're done with it, and not a widening to then a contraction again. And I didn't know if that was something that council would be interested in discussing.
It would be a great idea if it didn't concern federal wetlands, which needs federal permitting and needs to go through the EPA and all that other stuff. Actually, we've actually been talking about this stuff, about the wetlands, and we're working with Congressman Evans and his staff to try to see how we can get permitting to go ahead and do construction around that area because of the wetlands.
But I do like your idea.
I do
about
like your
doing
idea.
it after the wetlands.
Right. And also that bridge replacement as well, too, is going to cost us some significant. So there's a lot of challenges that have to do with federal government.
Right.
One of,
ETA though for that.
one other issue that we need to take into consideration. So the 65th Avenue is phase 3 of the 37th Street project, and then the wetlands will be phase 4. We have a $1.5 million federal grant tied to phase 3 as well that we have to have. So we have to have construction awarded by it's the end of year 2027, or else we risk losing that $1.5 million grant for phase 3. So there's a pretty serious funding consequence to us.
Can we bring that up for a work session?
Pardon me?
Should we bring that up for a work session?
bring?
The sequencing of of 37th?
Yes.
Yeah, I can bring that to a work session. What exactly would you like?
Is that what we're discussing? Is that what we discussed?
I don't think so. I think there is still value to doing phase 3 first. First of all, because that constraint we have on that grant, but also there is still value, I believe, to getting that intersection done to the residents in Grapevine Hollow out the west side there. Even though ideally we would not have a choke point in between 65th and 47th Avenue, but yeah, I kind of feel like we're really too late in the game to make that change.
So to go back to your prior question there that you asked regarding about how long the permitting process and all that through to cut through the federal red tape is to get permission to do that. Cody and I actually had a meeting, what was it, a few months ago with Adrian Sandoval regarding that.
Yeah.
And with actually Congressman Evans was there as well. He said they could try to expedite it, but it would still take several months to a couple years.
So something that we could look at, and this may alleviate the phase 3, phase 4 sequencing, is does the city council, because this is something I'm going to start engaging my engineering team on, does the city council want me to start focusing on 49th now, 49th Street, ahead of phase 4? Because we're already getting ready to start the design of phase 3. So it'll be essentially the design of phase 3, the construction of phase 3. And right now we're looking at the design of 49th Street. So there, I think, Councilman Delaney, there's where my big question is the council still focused on 49th Street? I'm to the impression that that's been a yes, but
I'm not as focused on 49th Street as I am on the other maintenance and other expansions.
I think,
And that's why I would like a work session on, there's other projects that I would like to focus on other than 49th.
okay, so a work session for you would be
Other
all
projects
options.
than 49th,
Okay, so all street options that
Yes.
we could be focusing on.
or other critical points.
Arterials.
Yes.
Okay.
Because I don't think that we should be putting all of our eggs in one basket. No, absolutely not.
Particularly a basket that's going to put us in debt for
No, I do not want to do that,
ton
period.
of time.
Yes.
however, we really focus the 1% straight sales tax on getting 49th Street done. And I think if we push that back and take a look at it another time, I think that's a slap in our face to the voters who we really champion on. If we get this passed and put in permanently, 49th Street was going to be our focus. And I think if we push it down further, if we try to go out for anything else, they're going to say, but you told us 49th Street was going to be your priority. Now it's not.
I didn't tell them that.
Well,
I wasn't
and
involved in that.
I would like to clarify. 49th Street is clearly in desperate need of resurfacing. It's in terrible shape. But as far as whether we are doing a full-blown widening project to make that 4 lanes with sidewalks, there just is no population. I mean, much smaller population out there than. So I mean, I don't know if there's a way that we can do the design and also resurface it, but I don't see a huge need for it to be widened to 4 lanes with sidewalks and all that for years to come still.
Yeah, so where we're at right now, we're trying to get, so phase 3, we're trying to get it bid for design, finishing up the street lights, State Street. So those projects that I went through tonight, getting those engineering projects either into design or out for bid. And so then my next focus, and I just had a conversation with Shantanu and Ty last week, that preparing for a internal discussion where I can provide my expectations for 49th Street, and we can start putting a design scope together. Because we know there's going to be extensive drainage that we've got to look at because of the sheer volume of water coming off those fields around us. We don't know what the public infrastructure is like underneath the street. And the last thing we want to do is rebuild the surface of the street without taking a look at the infrastructure underneath. If we have to do utility relocates, if there's water, sewer, or anything like that's in pretty rough shape. So, I mean, there's going to be an extensive scoping of the project. And guys, if I'm speaking out of turn, please. So there's going to be a lot from an engineering perspective that we've got to take a look at that ensures that when there is a final product produced, that we're not immediately, turning it into a quilt and fixing utilities underground. I'm preparing for 49th Street design now on the understanding that that's council's expectations. If I'm wrong, please tell me before I engage these guys.
You're wrong on my behalf
Not for me.
because my constituents didn't want that. And I did not tell my constituents that, and this is not what I voted for.
It is.
And I don't want another pipe going nowhere. I want money sent to where it needs to be sent, not capped for nothing.
We also have the county that's willing to come in and help pay for 49th Street as
I would
well.
like to have that conversation as well, and then that's a different conversation. But I don't want to put all my eggs in one basket.
Well, we're not putting all of our eggs in one basket, but we're also
Sure sounds like it.
getting what people that came to the town hall meetings and
That-
when we were having discussions about one their biggest thing is 49th Street.
How does council feel since this is being
Yeah,
raised?
council discussion?
49th Street.
I'd say explore other options.
Explore other options.
More options. Absolutely.
I'll say you.
I think just based off what's happening today, so far we have three. My suggestion was definitely to come in and definitely explore it all and really ensure that as a council we're aligned with what exactly we want to prioritize, especially with roads. I do agree with the 49th, taking care of that. But I also want to ensure that everyone's voice is a part of the discussion and that we gather all the information that we need and ensure that that's the best course of action.
And make the most appropriate course of action for all constituents.
Yes.
Let's get a work session together, bring all that information to council, and we'll make a decision from there. But
Can we
right
get,
now, for me today, 49th Street is still the priority.
can we get any information, do you think, from Weld County about what was put in there in the past? So we get an idea of how old some of the infrastructure is. We do know that the corrugated pipe is pretty rotten.
Yes, what we'll do is I'll start preparing for a work session where we bring these options to the table and we'll just have a comprehensive discussion. So I'll have staff reach out to Weld County. We'll figure out what that impact is to 49th Street, and then we'll bring back a comprehensive discussion for you guys to consider here in the very near future.
But I also think that, in the past, we've always discussed on the priorities of the city, especially when it comes to roads and what we want to do for a few months now. I know it's been 49th. We've been discussing it and everyone's been in agreement based off kind of where we are within that specific project. I just want to make sure that once we prioritize for the year that we stick to that plan and not kind of deviate from that, because that has happened in the past where we deviate from what we initially wanted to do. And what happens is then everything just gets jumbled, and we don't get projects done like we should within that specific year or get those moving along. So if we have a work session, let's solidify what that looks like for us for this year so we can move forward and ensure that, again, we're being, responsible with, our, taxpayer funds and what have you. So that's all I wanted to mention.
Hold on. If you want to speak again, we'll keep. Go ahead, Councilmember Neal. We're already. Go ahead.
Okay, in deference to Jeff, I'm gonna mark one of these off. First of all, I want to make my position clear to this council. When I was elected, I made up my mind that anyone that came to me, be they a constituent, someone from Ward 2 or 3, or in the county, in Greeley, or out in Colorado or outside of Colorado, if they made a comment about something that was going on in Evans and they wanted me to present it to council, I would do so. And I have done so. And I know that irritates some people because they're not notified maybe of something that's going on in their ward. when this happens. Uh, but that's my philosophy is if somebody comes to an elected official with a complaint or concern, it should be addressed, especially if they ask that it be presented to the council or city staff. With that in mind, the first thing on my list here is the RV park. Someone has pointed out to me that there are too many permanent residents, they feel, over there. And when we approved this,
Where was this?
the RV park that we approved, well, that some of us approved, there's only supposed to be 15 permanent locations. There appears to be, just by me driving by after I was notified of this, that there are an awful lot of people there that have set down permanent roots. I haven't went by and stopped and took pictures to try to confirm this yet, but I suppose I'll have to do that. The other comment I have was we did all this work on 23rd Avenue with new concrete and asphalt and a signal light, which I guess was pushed by some residents in the school district there. And instead of part of the purpose of this was to attract business there, and we have lost 3 businesses. We lost the parent, Palomino, Romano's, and Papa Murphy's Pizza. So I'm not sure what good it did to do all that work. I hope this is not a trend, but it was pointed out to me, and I have to agree. It's really bad for Evans that we've lost 3 restaurants there.
All right, so the RV issue sounds like an administrative issue and not a council issue, so that should be addressed with code enforcement and the proper staff.
Can I address the second one?
Go right ahead.
Okay, so right now, as a business owner, it's terrible economic times. And for small businesses, we're all struggling. And so there's no correlation to for that intersection and the businesses closing. And my heart goes out to those businesses that did close.
Absolutely.
But as living in that subdivision and those residents, were thankful for that light system. But those businesses, unfortunately, are closing because of the lack of support. And so new businesses will come in, but unfortunately, the business climate right now is just super tough, and there's no correlation to that, council member, unfortunately.
Well, I'm not sure there is either. I feel that at least 2 of the businesses were in strip malls, and my experience over the last 30 years is these strip malls keep raising rent, and people can't afford to stay there.
It's tough.
That's why Costco wanted to buy the land, and they didn't want them to buy the land, so they moved elsewhere.
It's tough.
But I would say on the RV issues and anything like that that has to deal with policy of the city should go directly to the city staff, not to council, and let them address it. And if it doesn't get addressed at that level, then it should be brought up for council discussion and to council, because that's their function, not a council function. 2, as far as the constituents speaking with you, that's fantastic. I would just say, as a courtesy to your representatives in other wards, at least give them the courtesy to let them know, hey, you spoke to so-and-so about whatever the issue is. That way, at least they're aware of it. And if they're out in the community and somebody brings it up to them, they're not blindsided. At least they'll be able to say, hey, oh yeah, I remember Councilmember Neal told me about X. Cool. Yeah, this is what we're doing to address it. That's fine that you talked to them. Just, it's courtesy to let your other council members know in other wards that you talk to other people. Hey, just to let you know, I talked to this person about this issue. That way, if somebody else addressed it to you out in public, you're not blindsided. It's a courtesy.
Well, the RV park issue, I was specifically asked to bring it to council, so.
And I would say,
And I realize it needs to go to Cody, but they felt that council needed to be aware of it since we approved it, or some of us approved it.
go ahead. All right,
Okay, I thought we
So-
were still talking
yeah,
about
no,
the street
no.
thing. So for me, 49th would still be a, one that we should look at. So when you do bring that back with the other roads, which I understand why everybody wants to see that, could we also have the grades for the roads included? Because I do think that was one of the reasons we were like, we're gonna get there, but we had other streets to address before 49th. If I remember correctly, that grade for that one was, so I think that's why it was more of a, for those of us that have been on council a while, why 49th was more, a pretty important one to get done.
Yeah, we have our updated PCIs, so we can incorporate that into the information.
Thank you, and I don't mind it coming up at a work session, I want us all to have the correct information.
Mhm.
Thank you, that's all.
Cody, happy birthday.
Thank you, sir.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
All right, so.
I'm getting to the point where my candles cost more than my cake, so.
All right, I'm planning to do a mayor's town hall probably on the 26th of February, probably at 6 o'clock here at the town hall. Try to get that information out, just gonna give an update of what's going on in the city to the community. I haven't had one of those in a while. Second of all, I was not in attendance at the January, second council meeting in January, and I apologize for that because I was out of town on military duty. I did watch it online, and some saw the council discussion. I want to say I appreciate you and your staff for bringing up ideas that were outside the box and thinking about those things, because we have a lot of things that we have to fix in this community, and there's cost a lot of money, and there we have to find some solutions to make things work, and sometimes outside the box ideas of what we need, because we as a council have asked you to do that and staff to think of creative solutions, whether or not they come to fruition or we agree as a council. But I just want to say I appreciate it, you guys bringing that up and everything. So I want to say thank you on that. But other than that, that's all I got. Yep. All right.
I appreciate your guys' support. And again, with the discussions we had tonight, I know there's a lot that we unpacked for you guys. What I'm really excited about with the caliber of people I'm bringing on board this team is being able to identify some of these challenges that we have or we have had in this community, or the way that this community has operated, or that we've done business, the way we've done business in the past, and being able to cut through that and bring a more clear vision to the city council. So I really appreciate the time, the effort the guys have put into to identifying some of these challenges, and I believe that I'm putting the right team in place to be able to move us forward together in a much more productive manner that speaks well of the city council's vision for this community.
And continue to bring those ideas to us, and we're moving in such a great direction and stuff like that. So continue to do that. Appreciate it. All right. Seeing nothing else for the good of the order, we'll call this meeting adjourned. Thank you, everybody.